Okay, so I figured out why my first video was rejected, and that's why I made the shorter video of the review for this weapon. So I'm going to take a little more time with this review. I know it's posted the same day and everything, but it felt like giving a longer review than I first did. High point 9mm carbine. I'll start off by tackling the most talked about part of this weapon, that it's a high point. To me, every company has its gems and its drawbacks. There are some, even the best companies have had failures, like right now Remington's trying to replace the trigger grouping in some of their weapons, things of that nature. So any company is going to have its issues, and to say that any company doesn't make a good weapon, to me, unless you fired every weapon that they've made, that's kind of an ignorant statement, because the failure is always an option when you're researching or putting science to a using the scientific method. Failure is always an option. You learn from failure. It makes things better. Having said that, this weapon is a very good weapon in my opinion. One, because it's ambidextrous. Left-handed, which I am a left-handed shooter, everything is very easy to operate. I have already checked and made sure this is unloaded before even turning the camera on, but I will do so again. There is no clip in it. Now, the second most talked about thing about this weapon is its appearance. People say that it's ugly. To me, that is a foolhardy statement. It is a weapon, a tool. For most people, it is not meant to be pretty. It's not meant to be flashy. If you're a competition shooter or a hunter or a sportsman, pretty weapons are a great thing. I do like pretty weapons. Don't get me wrong. But making your decision based on looks is like reading a book by its cover, or judging a book by its cover, rather. The third thing I'd like to address, the clip for this gun. It's talked about in some other videos, and I will address it in this one. And maintenance is the word I want to use before I start talking about this. People say, oh, you put the clip in, if you don't rock it a certain way, it doesn't go in. Okay? Now, I'm just going to throw it in. Alright? The thing I don't like is the flushness of the bottom of the ejection port for the clip, or the insertion port, whichever you want to call it. I'm not really an expert, like I said. If you flat hand this clip, it's not going to seat. You have to kind of get the butt of your hand on it and tap it into place. I'm going to eject this clip promptly because it is loaded. The second thing is, when it is loaded, the clip is loaded. When it gets to there, it kind of gets stiff. For someone with proficiency in firearms, this is not going to be an issue because most of us will pop the clip. For the shooters that I've been around that are less proficient with weapons, sometimes that becomes a problem. Subsonic rounds and the aluminum rounds tend to have an issue. The brass rounds, the brass chambered rounds, I haven't had an issue with. Um, these are what I use for target shooting in this weapon. I've not had an issue out of this ammunition. I've put 50 of them downrange, and as you can see in the target behind me, well, behind me, groups 1 and 2 are groups that were done with this weapon. The lower group in the middle of the chest region was done by a friend of mine, but these two groups here were done by me. Notice that the 7 and the 8 are gone. That is at 40 yards. And that's the range's limit here. This can be fired at an indoor pistol range. It is a pistol-loaded carbine. So unless you have a person at the range that just has a huge no long gun policy and no compromise, most ranges are willing to work with you with this weapon. I've been to my local range and shot this indoors at the local range. They did not have an issue with me firing this weapon. The third talked about issue with this rifle that I hear is some of the factory things that it comes with. I enjoy this front grip that it comes with. For me, it's very sturdy. I mean, there's a little bit of play, but you can tighten it up. But if you tighten it up, it of course gets stiffer to, operate up and down. Having said that, all in all, it's a good grip on this weapon. The buttstock. This recoil pad, it is a compressor pad. It goes back and forth. I thought it was going to bother me when I first got the weapon. Once I fired it, it was not an issue. The next thing on the buttstock is the cheek pad. For me, I have flabby cheeks. I'll admit I'm not in the best of shape. I live in the city. It's hard to get out and walk and hike and things. I used to live in the country, was in a lot better shape. But it slaps my cheek when I fire. It only bothers me after about 25-30 rounds. But it is one of those things that can bother you in repeated fire. The third thing, flip it over, the original sling piece was up at the top of the gun. Didn't like that. I'm a left-handed shooter. It dug into my cheek. So I moved it to the bottom of the gun. The screw is a little long and it protrudes, but it does not bother me anymore as a left-handed shooter or a right-handed shooter. I am ambidextrous when I'm shooting. So I'm going to go back to front here. I'll include this sling as a rear item because, it's just there. The original sling that comes with this weapon, I hated it. It was very uncomfortable. It was easy to adjust, but it just didn't have the range of adjustment that I needed or the comfort level. Not that this one is the best. I have a UTG around here in my equipment somewhere. I just don't feel like digging through the many boxes of equipment. The sights are the next thing I've heard talked about. To me, they are simple. Anyone can pick up this gun and use these sights. Unless you are blind, you will not have a problem using these sights. Now, are they the best sights in the world? Arguably, no. To me, yes. Iron sights are always, in my book, the most reliable form of accurately shooting a weapon, simply because they cannot be defected. I'm not going to say they can't be. They're a lot less likely to be defected to the point where it makes the weapon ineffective. A scope. It can be knocked around, it can be dropped, it can be broke, it can be mounted to the top of your weapon and pretty much useless if the lens is cracked. Very rare occurrence. in my understanding, but it can happen. Um, the laser and EOTech sights, I'm not saying they're bad things. Um, I'm not saying they're bad products. But for me, I'm a prepper, so I believe the simplest is the best option. I don't rely on a lot of technology or anything like that. The third and probably the most valid complaint I have heard about this weapon, and I really want to address this thoroughly because I've seen this happen. This little thing, and it didn't happen to me, this little spinner here that is on the charging ram and the charging ram bolt. If you do not tighten it, it can come out of this weapon and hit you in the face at a very high speed. Not a fun thing to have happen, so make sure that this is nice and snug before you fire this weapon. The tool, again I said, is in the bottom of the grip. You just rotate that around and it comes out. It's got the hex fitting for this charging ram. Again, maintenance and checking your weapon before you fire it are very big things for me. I've been to ranges, I've seen YouTube videos of people's weapons just exploding simply because they've gotten, even as much, I've seen raindrops do it. Somebody have their rifle on their back while hunting and it is upright. Raindrops got into the barrel and created a barrier of water. And believe it or not, with a good velocity, the water is just as hard as concrete. It doesn't move out of the way quick enough to not cause a failure in some weapons. Will I say it's one of those things that happens all the time? No. But it does happen. When you are carrying a weapon, in my opinion, like I said, I'm not an expert. If you have a contrary argument to this, post it in the comments below or whatever. Start a new thread on my comments, feel free. But in my opinion, you should never carry it facing up if you're carrying it on your back. If you're facing it down, then there's nothing that can fall into the barrel. Also, if you're hunting, for me, use the barrel plug. I just stuck my hand over the barrel. Not a very good thing to do, but I'm confident that this weapon is not loaded because I've checked several times. But use a barrel plug. They have them for different calibers. It's just a yellow, ridiculous looking item, but it will keep fouling out of your barrel. Otherwise, you can just use a piece of aluminum foil or something like that. That's just my opinion on that. But yeah, I think it's ridiculous to carry a weapon straight up. It's asking for things to be in the barrel and then to fall into your chamber and everything like that. If you're carrying it down, it shakes everything out, one, and two, things never really get in there in the first place. Again, never set your barrel in the dirt or anything like that. Alright, so going front to back, or back to front, the next thing I have heard is this little button here gets stiff, this, that, and the other. I've heard complaints about that. When I do hear that complaint, it is usually from someone who you can tell does not know a lot about weapons. If you take this gun apart and you oil it, it will not stick. The third part I have heard a lot of complaints about is the trigger mechanism, and I do realize I'm sticking my finger on the trigger, but it is just to point this out. It is not over top of the trigger, but beside the trigger. A lot of people say that the trigger on this weapon is stiff or it's not smooth or anything like that. Again, take it apart, oil it, make some changes to the springs maybe. I haven't done so, but I've heard of people who have with this weapon, and it has improved the uh, trigger smoothness. I don't really think you can mess with the tension too much, the amount of pressure it takes to pull the trigger, but maybe you can. Like I said, not an expert. The third complaint that I've not heard, but is a complaint for me personally, is this little thing here. There's a little plate on the bottom of this weapon that you have to take off to disassemble it. The tool doesn't really do the job for that. A pair of pliers or something like that usually does it pretty well for me. Again, if I made some modifications, it could probably be a lot smoother to get on and off, but again, I'm not a gunsmith, so I don't go to messing with things but so much, because you can ruin a weapon very quickly if you do not know what you're doing. To the next part, this little thing here that slides the grip off. I heard people say, well, that's just a stupid way to do it. To me it makes it easy. It makes it easy to maintain this weapon. It flips up, you take it off, and it just makes it easy. The only other thing that I've really had an issue with is it doesn't come with swivel, the swivel sling clamps, or whatever you want to call them. I'm going to take those off and put a single point sling on this weapon, so those are going to be gone at some point anyways. This front grip, it's got a little bit of play in it, but for this weapon it's good. I've taken this weapon apart. I'm not the most confident person in doing that. I don't know how to take apart an AR and put it back together, simply because I've never owned one, because I've heard of reliability issues with ARs, and that's just a preference for me. At this point, the AR platform hasn't been a priority for me, just because, I'm a home defense person. I am a prepper, but I try to keep it as low budget as possible to try and keep it somewhat in control. As I speak, my whole bed is full of prepper gear because I'm tearing it down and cleaning and maintaining everything and putting it together. But as a bug out weapon, this little gun, to me, is a really good gun. I have one other gun that I will carry in a bug out situation, and it is my 22, because I can take small game with it without wasting the ammo for this. But accuracy, speed of target acquisition with this weapon, and the reliability if you maintain it. Now, I'm not saying that if you fire 100 rounds through it that it's going to jam. I'm saying if you have the time to maintain your weapon regardless of the platform, even in AK people, AKs do fail too. Just because you've seen the YouTube videos, just because you've seen, these things buried in sand and dust and whatever, does not mean that you never have to maintain them. Please listen to me on this. They can fail too. They do fail. People get injured, and maybe not even you, but the people around you will get injured. So anytime you have a resting point in any situation to maintain your weapon, whether it be at home, in an emergency situation, in a combat situation, I hope you don't do it in the middle of a combat situation, but you get what I'm saying. My computer monitor just went to sleep. I guess I'm boring my computer. You know, don't do it in the middle of a combat situation, but maintain your weapons. All in all, 7 out of 10 from me. It is not a ranged weapon. You don't want to try to shoot 700-800 yards. Can you? Maybe. Will it kill the person? Probably not. 400 or 500 yards, you're doing some damage. You're losing a lot of accuracy. 300 yards for me is the top range you want to be using this at, and I say that reluctantly, because it is a 9mm. The closer the better. Not too close though. I realize this is a long video and I'm trying to wrap it up, but I just want to make sure I get everything, every piece of information I can get out in this video. And I do think I've done a pretty good job of that. But like I said, all in all, you know, it's not a ranged weapon. It's not a long rifle. It is a pistol-loaded carbine. Is it the best weapon in the world? No. Is it the prettiest weapon in the world? No. But for the money, it's reliable. It has, you know, the tactical rails and everything. You can put different things on. It's to me, it's a very good prepper weapon. It's a comfortable home defense weapon. You know, anybody can pick this thing up and use it. Having said that, you know, always monitor underage children when they're firing. You know, make sure they know if there's a malfunction to, you know, keep the gun pointed down range. You know, and let you handle it, because you're an adult. There's no reason for a child to have to handle a malfunction. I'm not saying they don't need to learn how to handle it, but there's no reason for them to handle it. You know, they're a child. If the round explodes, you're going to feel guilty, and you're going to have to listen, or you're going to have to live with that on your conscience. You know, I've seen people with shotguns, they hear the click, and they just shut the round out. It hits the ground. The powder hits the burning primer that it didn't hit before, and the round goes off and peppers everybody at the range. Not cool. You know, if you have a squib round, you know, you hear a click and a slight pop. That's called a squib round. That's when the round doesn't have enough powder, and goes and lodges itself in the barrel. When a round does not fire out of a weapon, in any weapon, put it down, think about what you're doing. Make sure that you do not load another round. Do not try to recycle it, anything like that. Put it down, think about what you're doing, slowly pick apart the problem, make sure your barrel is free of obstruction. I've posted videos on Facebook of people with squib rounds who hear the click, the cartridge ejects, they think the rounds went downrange when it hasn't, it stopped in the barrel, and they put another round and the gun just catastrophically freaking fails. I could go on and on, but plain and simple, this is reliable to me. Others may not have had the same experience. Very easy weapon to use, left-handed and right-handed. You know, like I said, always use safety. Always make sure your gun's unloaded before cleaning or making a video such as this. I've seen videos where people have shot holes in their roof. So, yeah, High Point 9mm, moderately good weapon. Very surprised by its performance. Have viewed other videos where service members have said that this is a very fine weapon. You know, maintenance is required with any weapon. This one a little more than an AK, a little less than an AR. It's a moderately fine rifle. Or weapon. Sorry. I was taught not to say rifle or gun in ROTC, so weapon. It's a moderately fine weapon. For me, I like it. It works. It's simple. And I'm reiterating over and over. So I'm going to end this video.